I want to tell you a story about a woman I recently met. About 15 years ago, she was in her late 20s. She had just graduated from college. And when she was in college, she had been sexually assaulted. As a result of that sexual assault, she was dealing with depression and PTSD. And unbeknownst to her, one of the medications she was taking to deal with that trauma interfered with her birth control. And she found herself unexpectedly pregnant. She knew at that time that she was not prepared to become a mother. And she knew that the man involved was not prepared to become a father. So at that time, she made the choice to have an abortion. I want to tell you the story of another woman. She's in her late 30s, and about a year ago, she met a man who we'll call Mike. And after a few dates, they were pretty sure they were going to spend the rest of their life together. So when early on in their relationship, they realized they had an unexpected pregnancy, they were surprised and a little scared, but they were also joyful. And they made plans to start a family together. But at their 19-week ultrasound, they got devastating news. They learned that their daughter had a severe heart abnormality, one that would require multiple surgeries as soon as she was born, and one that had a 20 to 50% chance of survival after the age of 2. And she told me that the next few weeks were the most agonizing of her life, as she and her partner considered every possibility because their doctor had told them they should consider abortion. And what they had to consider was this. They had to consider the health of their daughter and what their daughter might go through. They had to consider the impact this would have on them, the emotional and mental and financial impact of raising a child with special needs. And they had to consider what this would do to the family they desperately wanted. Ultimately, with the support of their family, they decided to continue their pregnancy. And next week, their baby daughter is due. These two women are actually the same women. She is the same person who made very different decisions at very different points in her life. I've worked in the field of reproductive rights for the past 20 years. I've been a litigator, I've been a lobbyist, I've counseled women who were and I've also written briefs before the Supreme Court. And like many of you here today, I've been a woman who has taken pregnancy tests, desperately hoping not to be pregnant. We all find God in those tests, right? We think, please God, I'll never have sex again if I'm not pregnant. And I've been a woman taking a pregnancy test, desperately hoping to be pregnant. And I'm lucky enough to be the mother of 2 beautiful little boys. When you work in this field, you aren't unsure of your position. You don't walk into NARAL or the National Right to Life Committee or Planned Parenthood looking for a job and say, yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel, right? That's no way to get a job. What we do is we commit. We dig in. We are entrenched because we care, because we are passionate. And we surround ourselves with people who share and buttress our views. Because that's what we do, right? We collect people who tell us that we're right. But over the last few years, I began to feel that something was missing. I was finding myself increasingly not satisfied with the debate. Because the debate has always been framed as one of polarities. Pro-choice, pro-life. Pro-abortion, anti-abortion. Anti-baby, pro-baby. Pro-woman, anti-woman. And where has that left us? It's left us with a Supreme Court so sharply divided on this issue that decisions are often 5-4, whether it's on an issue of abortion restrictions or access to contraception. It's left us with a reality that abortion is a litmus test for political candidates or federal judges. It's left us with a House of Representatives that is willing to shut down the federal government over funding for Planned Parenthood. And it's left us with a public that is deeply divided on this issue. A recent Gallup poll found that 47% of Americans identify as pro-choice and 46% as pro-life. And it has also left us with an unintended pregnancy rate that has not substantially declined. Currently, about 50% of pregnancies in the United States are unintended. 50%. That's 3.4 million unintended pregnancies every year. And 40% of those pregnancies end in abortion. No one is winning with these numbers. So what do we do? How do we move beyond this? Now, as a lawyer, I like to break things into discrete parts. I like a path, I like a plan. And I think the questions are three. One, what's the problem? Two, what's the barrier to fixing the problem? And three, how do we move that barrier? Let's start with the first one. What's the problem? I think we've identified it. It's the polarities. It's the entrenched positions that are seemingly not reconcilable. So what's the barrier? Why are we still there? And I would posit that that barrier is fear. Because we are so entrenched, we are scared to have a real conversation. Because as someone who has worked on these issues for years and taken positions, I don't want to cede any ground. I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to lose the fight. We're scared. How do we get beyond that? What's the solution? I would posit that what we have to do is dive into the space in between. We have to get out of those polarities and see what's in the middle. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, she's going to say, oh, this issue isn't black and white. In fact, it's really gray. And that's right, but it doesn't get us very far. Because that space in between isn't gray. Because that space in between is the reality of women's lives. It is the joy and the struggle. It is the multi-layered complexities. It is the decisions she has to make every day. And in that space in between, that's where morality lives, and that's where emotion lives. And that space of women's lives, is technicolor. So how do we get there? How do we move the conversation forward? When I think about this, I think I should argue. I should give you facts. And what would I tell you? I would say that 1/3 of American women will have an abortion in their lifetime. I would tell you that abortion is safer than childbirth, 14 times safer, in fact. And I would talk to you about autonomy. I would say that a woman who cannot control her reproductive decisions cannot control anything in her life. And that may all be true. But the person in the other polarity is having a completely different conversation. Because while everything I just said may be true, for her, what is most important is valuing and respecting life. For her, she feels a duty to protect life. And for her, abortion is taking a life. We're having different conversations. And underlying those arguments on both sides are dangerous presumptions. Presumptions that women who choose abortion don't respect life. and presumptions that those who oppose abortion don't respect women. We are having different conversations. So here's my challenge to you. Can we acknowledge that valuing autonomy and respecting life are not competing? Can we acknowledge that both can live in that technicolor space, because that is where women live? Women are not one side or the other. Women are complex. Women are dealing with the realities of their everyday life, because in that technicolor space are real women. Women like Sarah. Sarah was 16 years old, and she was stuck in an abusive relationship, and she was abusing drugs, and she found herself unexpectedly pregnant. And at that time, she knew that she could not be a mother, and she chose abortion. She ended up graduating from high school, going on to college, and just last year, graduated from a major 4-year university. In that technicolor space are the women who find themselves unexpectedly pregnant and make the heroic decision to choose adoption. In that space are the women who try for years to get pregnant and cannot, who want nothing more than to have a child. In that space is Mary. Mary tried for years to get pregnant, underwent grueling fertility treatments. And when her doctor told her that she was pregnant with twins, and that the best chance for one of her babies to survive was to end one of the pregnancies, that's what she did, so that she could protect the life of the baby she so desperately wanted. In that technicolor space are the 40% of women who choose abortion who are living below the federal poverty line. And in that space is Janice. Janice is one of the 113 women who just last week submitted a brief to the Supreme Court. And in that brief, they told the court of their deeply personal abortion decisions and how making that decision shaped the trajectory of their careers and their lives. In that space are the deeply religious women who choose adoption or choose childbirth, and the deeply religious women who choose abortion. And in that space are the 60% of women who choose abortion who were already mothers, who know what it means to be a mother. We have to be brave enough to acknowledge the intense gravity of the deeply held beliefs on each side, because women and their families deserve better than both camps have been giving them. Now, I said in the beginning of this talk that when you work in this field, you don't go in undecided, and I'm no exception. I stand here proud to tell you that I deeply believe in women's autonomy and deeply believe that they need to be able to make reproductive decisions, because if they cannot, they have no control over any other aspect of their life. But here's where it gets scary, and here's where it gets hard. I need to move beyond that. I need to get out of those polarities. I need to be brave enough to say, I respect women's autonomy, but I also respect life. I also respect potential life. I need to acknowledge that life is sacred and potential life is sacred. And the women who choose abortion are making a sacrifice. Because I am a woman who has looked at an ultrasound at 7 weeks of pregnancy, saw a fluttering heartbeat, and thought, that's my baby. And I'm a woman who's looked at an ultrasound early in pregnancy, desperately hoping to see a heartbeat, and was devastated when there wasn't one. I viscerally understand the connection to life, to potential life, and love for that potential life can happen in an instant. And can someone in the other polarity be brave enough to say, I respect life, I value life, and I also value women's lives? Can she be brave enough to say that choosing adoption or choosing childbirth or choosing abortion can all be moral decisions. Can we acknowledge that all of those decisions are moral? Can we get away from the presumption that women must be selfless, and that selfless women, good women, moral women, choose to continue pregnancies, and those who have abortions are selfish? Can we be brave enough to say that women who find themselves pregnant are often making some of the hardest choices of their life? Can we be brave enough to say that for some women, that choice will be excruciating? For some women, it will be a relief. For some women, it will be joyous. And for some, it will just be what she needs to do. We need to move beyond the debate we've been having. We need to be brave enough to acknowledge the complexity. We need to be brave enough to acknowledge the technicolor. We need to be brave enough to change the conversation. Thank you.